just in. Taylor, did you get this urgent bulletin? There is a winter editions being announced here shortly, and we have managed to secure Ben Sehl on the line with us, a senior product director at Shopify. Tell us all about it. So, Taylor, join me in welcoming Ben.
Ben, what's up, man?
Hey, how's it going? Just product director. There's no senior in there, but really great to be
senior
on the pod.
executive. First of his order,
assistant to the regional manager. Yeah.
Well, I was trying to lift you up a little bit there. Sorry.
Appreciate. Sell the vision.
There you go.
I like it. If there's a senior title, the senior director title, I'll shoot for it at some point.
Well, we are excited to have you on, Taylor. Thanks so much for making this happen. By the way, Taylor, my co-host here, Carl, I'm your host. Happy to be here today with another exciting edition of this winter edition. So, man, we've got some really cool things to talk about, and we're stoked to get a little sneak peek, which we won't be sneaking to you until it's time, but still, we're excited. So, Ben, what do you do at Shopify? How'd you get there? Tell us real quick.
How I got here is I'll say with what I do, and then I'll talk about how I got here. So, I lead the Liquid Storefronts product team here, and the main role of the PM is just to be the voice of the user, and so represent our merchants and developers using online store and try and make it the best possible product for them to, achieve everything that they want. My sort of vision and goal is to make online store the simplest way to get what's in your head onto the web. And that means a lot of things for a lot of different people at varying skill sets, and whether you're a merchant or a developer or both. And whether you're a solopreneur or part of a huge organization, there's a lot that goes in there, but I think we all benefit from a lot of the same things. So how I got here is the short version, because it's like a 10-year story. 10 years ago, I applied for a job at Shopify as a theme designer. Didn't even make it to the phones. No, maybe I got to the phone screen and then didn't get past that, I think. So I had also just been let go from a startup I was working at as a designer, and I was about to start a brand that I then spent the next 8 years on called Cotton. And so I thought after I didn't get that job from Shopify, I'll build Cotton on as a theme, and then I'll reapply and I'll use this. Hey, look, I actually have relevant experience now. I can do this thing. And then instead, I spent 8 years building a company up to 70 people and a bunch of that just took a different turn with two other co-founders and of course a big team. Then skip forward quite a while. I was a designer that could do HTML and CSS and a bit of jQuery basically at that point. And then really that's in trying to build my theme on Shopify. Obviously I wanted to design a new theme from scratch, and I wanted things just so. And so then I had to learn Liquid as well. And Liquid, I was always hacking on WordPress stuff before that, and Liquid was really clicked for me. There was no anxiety of, if I delete this like weird PHP line, is the entire site going to blow up? Like, what are all the weird hacks for security by obscurity that I have to do to like make sure that all my data doesn't leak or whatever? It was just, okay, it's simple. I could just rest easy. And so I really fell in love with Liquid at that point. And then over the next 8 years, I just got more and more into development. And my wife would end up designing a lot of the pages, like landing pages and stuff we'd want to do in Keynote. And then I would try and just like look at them. And I used Tachyons, the CSS framework at the time, and that Emmet extension in VS Code, to see if I could build the whole thing using just a single line of like Emmet code, and then hit tab and the whole page would transpile. I would be able to hit it like a lot of the time. So anyway, I got really obsessed with front end. And then we try and do all these different things with our store and hit a lot of limits from what the platform could do. So we ended up going headless in 2018, 2019. No, sorry. I ended up meeting Toby in 2018. We launched our headless site in 2019, I think, or somewhere just before Sections Everywhere shipped, or OS2.
When you say you met Toby, like he just hanging out in a bar one day and he walks in like, oh, hey.
No,
Toby. Remember me? I tried to get a job.
There's a guy who's still here, Arpon, who is in product here too, and he had moved to Toronto, and him and my wife were on a panel at one point, and they ended up becoming friends. They had just moved here from New York. They didn't know anybody, so we ended up becoming friends. Both have Cavaliers as dogs, so we ended up becoming friends. And then I had listened to Toby's How I Built This podcast and tweeted at him just because it really resonated with me, and said something about, in 240 characters about my story. And then he ended up checking out Cotton and then sent me this fist bump emoji as a reply. And then I got a text from Arpon about, hey, Toby's going to be in town next week. Do you want to meet him? And I was like, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I managed to, the funny thing is I didn't appreciate his time back then. Like I think I got like 4 hours of time with him because I'm just going to talk to you for 4 straight hours. And now there's just no way I could ever get that much consolidated time. But just had a really great chat, and told him about my story, the things that I was going through, what things I liked and didn't, and talked about Liquid and talked about all sorts of stuff. And then I was like, okay, now I really want to come join this. And especially over the next couple of years, I ended up doing a ton of different like product research interviews. I was already doing them by that point, but really ramped up because of meeting Toby after that. And at one point I was in the Shopify office, the one that I'm in right now, like once or twice a week, just giving feedback on various stuff that people were working on. And then one thing led to another. I ended up like chatting with Toby about coming and joining. And then because we had just semi-related, we had launched this headless site, and I ended up coming and leading Hydrogen, and took that to launch with V1, and then pivoting and launching with, rebuilding on Remix with V2, and then switched to online storage just this past September, and so that's sort of the story so far.
That's awesome, man. Well, you're already doing better, at least if you got a notice when you actually applied. I recently shared this not too long ago. Carl, I don't know if you saw this or whatever, but I got an email from Shopify saying I was rejected for a position or something like that. And I was like, I didn't even apply to anything, but they're just like, they're sending out rejections just ahead of time. They're like,
just so you know,
this guy's gonna apply at some point. We're just saying no, So
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe it was Ben screwing with me. He was like, he saw this.
Even the best
like,
companies have bugs in their system sometimes, Taylor. I think that's
it's just not Liquid.
Yeah, not Liquid, not my area.
No. Well, I know people that have clicked on this podcast episode are very excited to hear about the winter edition stuff. So I've got all kinds of things I'd love to explore, but I think maybe we should just jump right into that for folks so they can sate their appetite for knowledge. So how do you want to even jump into this, Ben? Where do we even begin?
Yeah. So the theme of this edition is the boring edition. I don't know. I know this is a sneak peek, so I don't know if you guys got that
Sorry.
prior to this. Obviously, keep your lips sealed about that. But now that this podcast is out, you'll know. And I think that theme really runs through. Is like, when Apple did the snow leopard thing, like no new features, just really focusing on the good stuff. Really. Following up with Unified, that there's been a sort of doubling down on that and trying to just like really polish stuff and make things good. And for sure with us, that's been true too. We're now launching theme blocks, the stuff that we announced like a year ago in dev preview, and then shipped a big update to it at summer editions. So now you can have nest blocks and have static blocks and pass dynamic content to be inherited through them and do all this sort of cool stuff. And then on the Liquid DX side, some really more basic fundamental stuff. We rebuilt our CLI. Used to be built on top of Ruby, and it was this kind of special case thing. The rest of the Shopify API had this, or Shopify CLI had this Oak Cliff foundation, if you care about building CLIs at all. And each one was sort of modeled as a plugin. One of the downsides of our old CLIs, if I install a fresh Mac, if I don't have Ruby installed, first I have to install Brew, install Ruby, and then I have to go install the CLI, which is just gnarly.
Who wouldn't have Ruby installed? I mean, that's the first thing people install.
Yeah, so I really care about CLIs. I think like they are such a amazing little tiny way to open up so much functionality programmatically. And with Hydrogen, that was a huge area of investment for us, was to make the CLI be able to do anything you could do in the admin. And I really loved that. It allowed like just a world of opportunity when our default publishing flow, for example, with Hydrogen was git push, and we have this GitHub action that we'd pre-create for you so that you didn't have to worry about how to write those. And if you just merge to main, it creates a new production deploy. But then some large merchant wanted tag-based release flows, and no problem. I just copy-pasted the YAML file into GPT, said, make this based on tag-based release flows, and then just rewrote it, and I gave it to them, and it worked. And, there was just so much that you could do because it was all through Hydrogen deploy. And so trying to make that like a narrow way to be able to open up everything really unlocks, we have that saying of make the important things easy and everything else possible. That's somewhere where I feel like we can do a lot better of a job in Liquid Land is on that everything else possible front. And CLIs are one of those ways that I think you can do that really, really well. So now that we've rebuilt on top of TypeScript, we have this we also cleaned up a ton of other tech debt and just polished a lot of things. And now we have a much cleaner foundation that we can move a lot faster on. So excited to really build a much more polished overall experience on that moving forward. Hoping to just like when you get into flow state, it's such a special feeling, and then you hit some wall and it just totally shatters it. And my goal is that, like, once you get into flow state, like, I don't want you to ever leave, And so anywhere that you're just going to get hijacked out of that thing, you have to go crawl through Shopify.dev or something like that, and only to find out, hey, use our, profiler or use whatever. Like, those are all really gnarly experiences that make you feel bad as a dev. But when you can stay in that flow state and just see productivity happen at a rapid pace and, really great hot reloading, all this sort of stuff, like, it just feels like you have superpowers. And so that's sort of a key to that, is a new foundation there. Similarly, we have this new unified GraphQL API.
Hold on there,
yeah,
Ben.
Go ahead, Carl.
Let's marinate on the CLI for a little bit.
Marinate on the CLI.
Serve the entire dinner before you even have a chance to digest the first course here.
Yeah.
That's a good analogy.
He's excited. He's got his punch list. He's getting it out there.
I'm just curious. So one of the things you called out as we were kind of preparing for this call is that with the updated CLI, you no longer wait for synchronization when you start up the server. Could you explain like what that was even doing before? Like what sort of synchronization was taking place and how you were able to remove that?
You know what? I will say I have to plead the fifth a little bit because I just joined the team in September and I don't even want to dig into the skeletons in the closet on the CLI.
Sure.
There's so many things that were just built up because that's how they're built up. I think there's an interesting thing that happens with companies where, especially as a startup, you like defend against all the reasons that could go wrong, but it's hard sometimes to think about, well, what if things go extremely right in terms of traction? And then you grow to regret those decisions from the second order effects they create. I think CLI is probably on the bottom of the totem pole in terms of things that we at Shopify, or Toby maybe would wish he could have done differently the first time around, knowing how big Shopify scaled to. But there's probably some commits along the way with the CLI that made our lives harder. I know I had a whole session on understanding the architecture of the Ruby CLI, but I knew about the Oak Cliff one already from Hydrogen Land, and so I didn't really care to understand it too much.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that some of the stuff we're talking about, stability, and I get the whole desire too for streamlining development and things being a little bit easier, right? As far as like that piece goes. But I will say personally, and I'll start this off with, I love the CLI. I think it's great. Like from doing like stuff just like directly in the online like store editor to
Do you love it,
feed
Taylor?
kit. Love it.
Because you had some strong words not too long ago about a recent
You can have
update
strong
cycle
words.
that they went through.
Do not love it.
I'm warming up to this, Carl. I'm laying the groundwork on like I am very appreciative as someone who has like started from like when we're like we don't have any actual like development environment whatsoever, right? We're just like push refresh like okay great push
Hey,
so
let me
prefacing
say
with this, like moving over, I will say that's to me as far as like the stability, it actually hasn't felt as stable moving off of Ruby, like because we're talking about like after like what 3.63.
Yep.
And I know like obviously we're new days, and so there's a lot of stuff that's being ironed
Yeah.
out. But I don't know if that is some of the feedback that y'all have seen or gotten in general, because it still feels like maybe it is just because we're so early days. But like I've probably trusted the CLI less in the past several months than I have leading up to that point. So that's kind of the interesting take as far as kind of both sides of it. Like I said, we'll preface with I'm never going back. Like I love the CLI. We're really grateful for the people that are working on this kind of type thing. So I hope that that bit of feedback is couched in understanding that like I'm pro CLI.
Your tweets make it to the top of the triage list. And I think you've been the most vocal in terms of.
Don't say that, man. That's you guys are you're reinforcing the wrong thing. Now I'm gonna keep complaining on Twitter.
Right.
Like, someone's like, shut that guy up, would you? Like,
or some partner Slack DMs are fine too. But you have called out a bunch of the different issues that we weren't able to catch with the migration. I think we did take the stance of like shipping boldly and letting you keep the legacy flag in there because we did want to try and service the things we couldn't. We just didn't spot the first time around.
Yeah,
for sure. Our goal is to make that seamless.
Yeah.
I think we've addressed everything that you've done so far, but we should just keep hammering on that. I actually do remember. I think I remember the synchronization thing, which is, I think how it used to work was, our two local and remote had to like get in touch, and we had to go pull down a whole bunch of stuff before we could go and do anything. And now we can just build everything based on the local theme file that you have, and we don't have to do any sort of remote connections. There's a lot of stuff too around authentication workflows that we ended up removing to make simpler. So now there's this like headless auth flow that, you open up this new browser, there's a little code in there, you say, yep, that's the code, and then it just syncs you sort of like a Netflix phone sync login thing. So there was just a lot of stuff that we removed that you won't necessarily see from the DX, except for that there's just fewer processes that have to run, and so the overall latency is a lot lower. But yeah, hold us to task on the foundations of the CLI. Now that we're here, I think each thing that I know specifically that you've brought up has been like a 1 to 2 day turnaround time to get it closed out, and so it's just a matter of getting enough people and voices to surface those things. And I'm a huge advocate of like the Rebel Alliance. Like that's the whole thing that made me love this community and band everybody together. There's no other SaaS platform out there that I don't even think has a podcast, but or that I talk to the teams of, and that like there are that other users of it. We have like our own world that we talk about. So these products only become great through the strength of the community and the voices that come out of there. And so, I mean, for sure, I don't always love like roadmaps being hijacked by X posts, but I wouldn't take it the other way. I definitely, I invited, I posted about it like yesterday and again today to try and say, hey, what's the one thing you'd fix? Because it's a great signal. Why wouldn't I want to listen to that?
Yeah, I really appreciate that and I think we've talked about that and tried to talk that up, I think, on the episode even with Toby, where we're just like we really appreciate how like the whole team, like everybody who's running some product, like very open to criticism and stuff like that. So I definitely don't want it to ever feel like, there's a reason that I'm in this all the time, right? It's like I like being here, totally. And those sorts of things.
I think that the thing about it too is like, and why everybody's in there, nobody. To your point, Taylor, I feel like from where it started when I was first using Timber, the experience has come, I don't know, maybe it's 100x better. It's just easily, that it could be another 100x better before.
Right.
Like I think we all know that Shopify has the capability, and there's so much more headroom to go before we're really at this place where we're like grasping at straws from what could be improved. Mm-hmm. There's just so many things in this. Commerce is just such a massive, massive field that's kind of the fun thing. There's like, it's the hard thing as a PM to know what to cut because everything's important. And what to sequence, but I'm super proud of where we are. I'm super excited with where we're. I think the things are feeling really, really good. By the time this thing airs, it should be even better. We're shipping things weekly to the developer experience specifically, and the overall merchant experience, of course. But the where we want to go and how much better I think we can make this thing is also the most exciting thing to me. So yeah.
I don't think we're going to get out of him what we wanted to, Taylor, which was a confession that removing Ruby was a mistake. But to each their own, Ben. To each their own.
That's say Carl's the Rails guy, so you're not gonna get him off that piece. I
just don't think you should care
if you can
unless there was Ruby hooks, right? But I know that wasn't that whole thing. It was just
I wonder if do you know offhand, and it's cool if you don't remember. I know there was a problem a little bit ago because the whole CLI and these sorts of things uses Cloudflare tunnels, right? And that in order to set up that environment for that piece. And I think there was a problem with them a little while ago, kind of type thing, where it was Cloudflare tunnels are not supposed to be used for this kind of type thing or whatever. Is there a plan?
Do we
to
use
move off of
Cloudflare?
that?
I don't think we use Cloudflare tunnels for liquid CLI.
It's not for the CLI.
We do on the Hydrogen CLI, but
Right.
we don't for the liquid CLI. I don't think.
Okay.
'Cause it's just
What is that using then for that?
I don't actually know.
Okay.
Maybe we should. I can see if someone can join this call, but
I was just curious. I know
don't
that
know.
there's a problem.
I think it's just I'm gonna be wrong, but I think we're just streaming stuff up, and then we just have a WebSocket or something like that. That's just because you're not actually even doing right now anyway. Any of the local stuff is all on 127 dot. Whenever you get into Cloudflare tunnels, it's so that you can get something like ngrok or whatever, where it's a try cloudflare.dev, right? Or for Hydrogen, we have try hydrogen.dev, so that you can get an actual fixed URL that somebody could go to. For the other thing, what we're doing is I think we're just pulling it down. We're running an instance of the theme rendering engine or whatever it's called locally in the dev environment using in theme dev inside that command. And that's what's serving it up to 127. It's sort of like how Vite would run it. It's a small version of the runtime locally. But then you obviously have to be connected to the internet because everything requires data from Shopify's admin.
Sure.
And then anything that's in the customize the instance, the dev theme is just this temporary theme that we've created that we're pushing content up to, but it's all pulling it from local, I think, but every single time it's individually being pulled up there. Whereas Cloudflare Tunnel is just as long as your current port is open, it's reflecting the contents of your local file system, so that you're not actually writing stuff to another external server. In our case, we're actually writing stuff to Shopify each time. I'm pretty positive that's correct, but somebody can tell me I'm wrong later.
Well, yeah, that was for that that development theme that you're working on, because it's hosted on the shop. From if you're in the customizer and stuff, working locally. So that was what I was trying to figure out if that was using tunnels
in the
for
database. There's a themes table or something like that has a theme ID column or something like that, where there's one created for the dev environment, because you can see it in the path where it has that new ID. And so then it's just that's temporary and doesn't show up in the merchant interface because it's just for the devs.
Now, it doesn't show up in the merchant interface, but I did relatively recently find that it does show up in the store activity logs, which I was really surprised about, and I was like, that's brutal. I was trying to find something, and I was like, why are all these dev theme changes in here? What the heck,
that's interesting.
Man? Yeah,
probably could make less noise there. Sure.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If we could, because it was brutal trying to sift through what I was trying to find. It was just all my dev store changes or whatever. That's just this is bad. So,
if you tweet at me, it'll be done in 2 days. But because this is a podcast,
okay, good to know. Good to know.
I'm just kidding. Don't
load
do
this
that.
one. I'll load this one up. I did tweet about it. I didn't tag you obviously or anything.
No, that's the problem.
I don't.
Don't tag me more. I'm not. This is not a call to action.
I'm not going to tag people. I always feel really bad tagging someone. I only quick on the CLI. I know Carl's ready. But the only other thing, I won't tweet about it. Maybe I'll open up a GitHub issue or something. I thought that there already was one for this, or maybe, but and this is more online store. This isn't CLI specific necessarily, but if you have taken a look at this or what have you, but if you try to move or try to push a theme or something like this or whatever that has a Shopify video reference that doesn't exist in the new shop, it just breaks the whole thing. And so I don't know if y'all have seen that ever kind of type thing. I've complained about it a little bit, but if you are moving stuff around, and like I said, I'll say something about it later, but as far as issues to bring to your attention, that is one where I'm like, incredibly frustrated because I have to manually go.
This
and
is
upload,
a really good like bait and
stuff,
switch.
so.
It's like, hey, you want to be on a podcast, and it's actually
that
just
was
like
it.
a feature
That was
request.
completely yeah. Like
This
I'm
is
just
part
here
of Taylor's
for this.
Festivus tradition. It's his airing
Yeah, I
of
like it.
grievances.
It's pretty good. No, I mean, I'm down to look at that.
All right. I'm sorry. I'm gonna shift gears. I'll
I
be.
don't like the sounds of
positive.
bringing down a shop. I feel like, yeah.
No,
Man,
No, it doesn't. It just doesn't. Yeah, it just totally.
You know,
what's wrong
this
with
has to be
Taylor?
solved before this episode comes out. That's the only way that.
That's right. Yes.
That's the only way I can't make this a completely embarrassing.
Then people
episode.
it comes out. People are like, "What is Taylor talking about? What an idiot!"
It's been solved.
This doesn't
It's solved.
happen.
Yeah.
He made
He
it
was
up.
wrong. Well, speaking of what people are talking about, they're here listening to us talk about the exciting things coming out in winter editions. We just covered the CLI.
Good job
Got
bringing
tons
that
of
circle.
questions and things we want to dig into there if we've got time. A lot of technical questions. I've always been curious about it. But let's move on to the next big part of winter editions, the boring editions, as you've called it, Ben, which appears to be something around this thing you call GraphQL.
Yes. We are all in on GraphQL. As anybody watching this, I assume, knows at this point. But GraphQL, like Commerce, really does work as Graph. Every part of Shopify is so interconnected. So, like the amount of times you use references or just go from one object to the other one, GraphQL really makes a ton of sense as a consumer. It's for sure harder to write as a backend developer than REST, but as a result, we've really invested there. And some of the big things that were missing from the online store perspective were obviously themes. You couldn't do any theme management through GraphQL, and there were some things you couldn't do through the REST API either. I don't have the full list of what those are. And then menus, pages, blogs, and I think that was it. And articles also couldn't be managed through GraphQL. And so now the full experience there can all be done through the GraphQL API. Again, like parity to what it was before, but just trying to get to a place where that is really a rock solid API. And there's just a huge team that really invests a ton of time into the admin API, and it really sweats the detail. I've been involved in all of those projects, and they for this topic, even before joining the team, and like really sweating the details on like just even the names of each field, and hey, what the docs say for the error response codes and the enum support, and like there's a lot that goes into API design that. To me, it's kind of like, the inside the MacBook being designed beautifully kind of thing. Like that's the API design stuff for me that really shows when a company cares about details, is if the API is nice. Again, I'm sure there's lots. You can never say something's good, otherwise you're going to be attacked by a swarm of internet users about how bad it is. And I know that there's a lot of rooms to improve on everything, but I think it's the best API in the planet for GraphQL, and maybe for anything. Again, maybe that's stretched too far, but I'm really proud of it. I think the team should be really proud, and hopefully it's a lot easier to work with. Obviously, you got to learn GraphQL. It has its quirks. It's different than, but you can still build clients for it and still use it the same way that you used REST. Takes a little bit of legwork to set up some of those queries sometimes, but it can really be super powerful, and at least I fell in love with it once I got used to it. And so yeah, I'm really, really happy with that one. Again, boring edition. This is like the next thing is the least boring, but this part anyways is nothing. OMG, now I can finally, unless you were already trying to use admin API and then all of a sudden you had to switch to REST for some reason just to do stuff with themes, which would have been an absolute nightmare. So yeah, super, super happy to get all those things moved over and finally help complete that transition.
Yeah, that GraphQL stuff's been quite the journey. I remember Unite 2019. Taylor, you weren't there, were you? No, you weren't. Unite 2019 in Toronto, I was there. And we had a little dev workshop off to the side for a couple different things, and one of them was all about GraphQL. And I thought to myself, oh boy, this is coming. I'm going to have to actually figure this out someday. And put it off for 5 years, and here we are. So everyone called our bluff, but it's nice to have one consistent, unified, resource-based API. And
I will.
Best.
You know what? I said nicest API on the planet. I will give a shout out to to sanity with they invented this Grok language, GROQ. I really love that thing. It's like specific for when you're storing like unstructured data in like JSON objects and stuff. Like it's not, you can't just anybody uses Grok, but dang, it is nice. It's like you can, in very few lines, you can make really powerful queries and get exactly what you need. So I will. That it's a freaking nice API. So I don't at me. I recognize there's other people doing great stuff. But yeah, I'm super proud of the GraphQL API for sure, and I think it's a great fit for us.
One of these days, Ben, perhaps you can hook us up. I'd love to talk to someone who's been on the back end in terms of implementing that on the Shopify backend side, because
Let's do it. Easy.
it's unknown to me how you guys manage to performantly access that much data in the different ways it's being pulled. So
Well, I'm not in the engineering department, so don't ask me. But it's that's where I kind of tune out. But I just try and ask the dumb questions that hopefully can be somewhat helpful. That's why I focus so much on the naming of the APIs, because that's about as useful as I can be when it comes to completing these projects. Like,
It's very,
as a developer, this
that's
doesn't
also
really
very
make much sense
important.
to me.
So, like,
Yeah.
that's-
Taylor, do you have
So,
any complaints about the GraphQL API you want to surface with Ben?
Well, I mean, I'm not a heavy, I'm a front end dev who like dabbles and stuff like that. So I have, it has been very helpful to have the .dev assistant in the docs to like actually like write out GraphQL queries, because otherwise I have just felt like on a handful of things that I've had to do, it's just like, okay, try this, nope, okay, like come back, try this, nope, so that part has been very helpful. I will say, I was interested because I saw in the GraphQL notes that we had here as well about being able to manage like themes and theme files as well, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
Is there any plans? Or I don't know if you can talk about that a little bit. There's something that was interesting that's come up a couple of times. Is the checkout profiles. I don't know if you've touched that or looked at that at all. Just like we've got this nice new like online store editor, right, experience kind of type thing with checkouts as well, where we can kind of create different checkout profiles. And if you're on Plus, you've got Launchpad, and there's a couple of other apps and stuff where you can schedule that. And I'm assuming we're using this to some degree, maybe in some of these instances, if it's certain things, but. I don't think there's anything right now for like checkout profiles. Like if I wanted to schedule a checkout profile or something like that, or what have you.
Gotta get Gil on the pod, I think. But
yeah. Well, people were adding him on Twitter.
There is, because the old way, the only way you could manage checkout brand profiles when they first came out was through the API, or you had to get an app to do it. And Checkout Blocks was one of the apps. I actually installed Checkout Blocks as a merchant in order to use because I was like, I don't know how to figure out this mutation. So
right.
And the dev assistant didn't exist yet, and I didn't want to futz about it, so I just used Checkout Blocks to do it. And so the admin API is there for that. We are definitely complete now with like everything you can do is through the admin API. I will say this is like a little known fact, but generally, like Glenn is a huge proponent of this, but wherever we can, really trying to build things, eat our own dog food and build things as apps rather than as things into core. And so even like everything in the online store tab on the left is built using APIs that are exposed publicly. Like you could build the whole online store editor as an app if you were so inclined. I would challenge somebody to a duel on it, but so all of those things are could be built as a app out in the ecosystem using the admin API and all these things we expose. Maybe not before, but now that we're complete, I think everything can be done through the GraphQL admin API. So that's a pretty amazing thing. The full CLI, same thing. You could do that whole thing now using that. Maybe there's some first party or private APIs with that we do, but I think everything is just using public APIs. So yeah, really, really cool stuff. And I think that's really trying to like embody the platform mindset. And that's why these things are important. It's not that it's going to impact a merchant tomorrow, but it's going to impact, the next guild that's going to build a checkout blocks that creates a really amazing experience that a huge amount of people build, or Klaviyo or whatever. Because it's like Shopify can't build the best thing for every single person on the planet, right? We need this like huge ecosystem of partners to go and build. And part of the thing that I'm most excited for with our space too, I remember, one of the saddest days of my dev career was when Slate got killed. And then, but very quickly, shortly after, I think it was Kevin Green that launched Slater as this replace, and there was a replacement. It was like they also did it with like Kelly Slater, and it was like a whole like surfing throwback thing. He had this jetskis.biz thing, I think was his agency at the time. But Slater was sick. It was actually like kind of better than Slate for me. And then, actually, I think when that thing got killed, there was this birth of a ton of different dev tools in the community that were starting to get created. It was like a really fun time. Actually, Kevin also made a headless starter with Gatsby and Sanity that like got me convinced that we could do it too, which was such a bad idea. But that's something I think that we could do a lot more of now, is like giving people a lot more room to play. There was a reason why Jeffrey Gunther got that Built for Shopify award at editions.dev. If people didn't know that, he got one of those cool awards I'm very jealous of, because he has this awesome Shopkeeper CLI plugin that he built, and works for his specific workflows, and that was one of the things that didn't get supported initially in the move over to the new CLI, because he was using a bunch of private APIs we didn't know he was using, and when it all got bundled together, those ended up going away, and so we ended up just like exposing the things that he needed for that. They're still private, they're still internal, but like, use them at your own risk. But I wanted to make sure that he could still do that and get that progress he needed. So really, really cool plugin there, and I want to see like a lot more stuff like with that. There's a lot of other great tools that are out there, and I think those also help. I love competition, and I think it's like, I don't know, the time I fell in love with Mario Kart was when I like came 12th, and then I came in 11th, and I was like, okay, now, and then having somebody who I could like rival for being first was like the thing that kept me like so engaged. And I had this friend who was amazing, and now Max Stoiber, who's my director of engineering, my partner here, is so good at Mario Kart. We played together the other week, and that was so now I got another reason to pick up my Switch again whenever my kids fall asleep, I guess. Anyway, but the point was that want the community to I think there's a lot of room that we can give the community to thrive and build stuff again. And so again, I think partly these new APIs are going to help with that. I hope. And I hope that we can do a lot more too through extensibility in the future to just make the whole platform a lot more inviting for people to come and play. That'll actually dovetail well into the last thing.
I was just gonna say, you ready for the VS Code extensions?
Yeah, let's talk about VS Code extensions. I like the thing with the VS Code extension that is unintuitive about this is most of the power is in the language server that powers it, and the language server is the same thing that powers the web editor, which is like built on CodeMirror, I think, and VS Code, and if you use Vim, you can use it in Vim, like you could use it anywhere. That's the bulk of the thing, and then it just gets packaged in the VS Code extension for the IntelliSense bindings and whatever. But like if you're building your own extension I would love for somebody in the community to make a WebStorm extension. I'll like help fund it maybe, but like somebody to make that and just use our language server under the hood. Because I think that's one of the areas that we don't do well. And I know Dan Gamble uses WebStorm, and he just loves WebStorm, and he won't switch off. So I would love him to have a better experience. But yeah, so that's another cool area where the Liquify extension, which is super well used, had to write. Nick had to write his own language server, and he hasn't touched it in 2 years. Well, Liquid's evolved in the last 2 years, and I hope to continue evolving it. Does he want to continue to write a parser? I don't know. I don't think he should have to do that, and he should just focus on like the awesome value that he creates, and other people want to create that similar to that. So that's another unintuitive but a cool place as a platform where people can build. But the main thing there, the value that everybody will see, and I think that this is the most exciting thing that we're launching, have already shipped. It's already out there, and we're shipping to it all the time now. My goal is that same thing back that I said, like once you lock into flow state, you should just stay there. I love when I can just be hands on keyboard, don't touch the mouse, command palette through my different files, and maybe I use the mouse to hover on something, but then it tells me what I need to know, and I can command click on stuff and just keep going. And so I want you to never have to go to shopify.dev as long as you know the absolute basics. If you know that there's a thing called a product, a collection, and a for loop, basically, then you should just be able to get everything you need inside VS Code as you go. And so we like auto-completing everything. This isn't part of Editions because it hasn't launched today, but it'll launch by the time that you guys are there, are putting this out, which is like meta field auto-completions and meta object auto-completions, schema auto-completions, preset
now,
auto-completions.
why wouldn't you put that in Editions? That seems boring.
There's deadlines, but like I'm like, it's in there, but like just try auto-completion. But like every single thing should autocomplete. So and even things that are specific, custom to your store. So that's also a thing where the VS Code extension and the CLI are working in tandem, because the CLI is pulling down your definitions for you when you're running theme dev, and they're syncing them, and then the language, the VS Code extension is pulling those definitions in so that you can go and do auto completions. And now that we have context and theme blocks, or now that you can have dynamic, sorry, it's not called context anymore. We just changed the API, but now that we have this ability to like reference dynamic sources from parent blocks as well. When you're building these things, you end up moving through different liquid files like crazy. And it's so annoying to have to write presets where you have to right click on stuff and then drill in, right click on another thing, and like just to find out what the preset names should be for all these different settings that you have to write. And so now you just hit bracket, hit the quotes button, and all of the available settings list to you. You just hit the right setting. Then you go into the next one. All the values are there. You just hit the right value. You don't know what the value is. Like for a title, you can just type bracket closest dot, and it'll say which resource you can pull it from. You can fill that all out. So now you can just fly through the whole thing. And if that's not good enough, this isn't actually part of this, but I will just loop it in because it's somewhat relevant. Buried in the theme block stuff is setting presets now support hashes as well. And what's cool about that is when you're editing stuff, especially if you use the theme dev sync flag on the CLI, which I soon want to make possible to just set as default, so you don't have to type that in every time.
Don't make it default. Don't do
pardon?
it.
I won't make it default, but for people who want it default, they can do it.
Okay.
So
don't you dare.
I'm not replacing the defaults. Don't worry. I know you won't like that. But if you like it to be default, I want you to be able to save defaults.
Killer.
Separate thing.
Yeah.
But we write back everything into that templates file, like the index.json. If I'm making a slideshow for my homepage, for example, and I go in the editor and I tweak all my little values and I set them all up. Well, like now, how do I want to make that a preset? Well, you got to go and freaking fill out this thing, and okay, cool, auto completions make it a little bit nicer. But what's so much cooler is now you can just go into the JSON file, just copy that JSON content and just paste that as the preset, and that's just now your preset. So a merchant can just go fill out a page like they like, and you say, hey dev that I'm working with, how can I use this section in other parts of my page? Well, just shink, done. And like, now I'm definitely talking about the future, but it can't be that hard. I'm down to commit to this.
Does it make
be
those
that
cool
hard
sounds?
for us to say save as preset button. I just don't know why that would be that difficult.
Yep.
So for sure would love to get to a world where, all that stuff that just feels like I'm not even using my brain to do this. Like you shouldn't even do it in the first place.
That's been a request for a while for a handful of people that, it's like, oh man,
so,
that could be a thing to like just be able to like, I want to be able to share this across like multiple instances here, like really, really simply. So that would be huge.
So I think, maybe this is like too meta, and I don't know how far this goes, but like, back to that thing I said of like the things you regret, like there were probably features that Toby solved early on for specific needs that the way that he solved them are the pain points that we have now with like, why is this thing so hard? Right. And
sure.
So there is such a huge, like in trying to build a 100-year company, like a thing that is challenging here, and building a platform that serves so many millions of people for such a broad area. The challenge is the how you do it is really one of the most important things. So sometimes people say like, hey, why does this take so long for Shopify to do? Like I got this working in a week. Because like it's really important with how we do it, because we want this to be like a thing that accelerates everything in the future. So when we're working on things now, like when new infra things land, that helps multiply feature efforts by 100x in the future if you do it right. Or you can solve a feature effort now really quickly, but then it slows down everything in the future. And trying to get alignment on those hows is also really tricky. But you see these like being able to save hash JSON. It's like, well, that's a cool little dev feature. Like, why is that important? Well, it's important because that foundation now unlocks a lot of different stuff that you can do, because now you don't have to have the same strict thing, and you already have this content. You can plug and play it everywhere. I don't know if that was the intention because I wasn't on the team when that happened, but it's when you do see those things bubble up, you can then start to connect the dots between like, oh, that's why they did that infra thing I didn't understand one point in time a while ago. And that's part of the thing that I really love about Toby is seeing those shots called so far ahead of time and being like, oh, okay, got why that is important now, because this thing is so easy. Sometimes maybe that's just luck, but a lot of times there's a lot of people that think really hard about trying to make the right infra calls to make sure that
experience,
we can
intuition,
keep the pace.
For sure. That's definitely there's plenty of things that I do that I'm like, it's solving a problem now, and it's the best way to solve the problem right now. But I know 2 years from now, I'm gonna go back and look at that Git commit and be like, dang it, that was me. Totally get that.
But yeah, that's the VS Code extension. I think like it's I will say VS Code as well. I think it's it's an area that we're really keen to make better. I guess I didn't cover this, but this builds on that infra point. Like the way that we were able to make all these auto completions and things better is that first we built a virtual file system in the language server, and the virtual file system on its own doesn't actually give you any value. What it does is it allows the language server to read anything. It builds your existing local file system into this virtual file system so that it can know what the contents are of all those different files. And once that's there, then it's really easy for you to get autocomplete cross-file, and you can even do these things like right-click to move, refactor this code as a snippet, which is definitely on the wish list, or like different little functions. Or when you rename a file, anything that says like if you rename a snippet, for example, anything that renders that snippet will just automatically change the file name as well. If you do like there's lots of things like anything that errors can pop up when it's not referencing a different file, you can do that as well. We can do one of the things that's in the RFCs that we released a while ago is this thing called liquid doc. So you'll be able to have this doc tag at the top of snippets that can outline the parameters that you want to explore, similar to what we already did in Dawn and what you do in any other language, really. But now it'll actually do something, because you can hover over the snippet and it'll say, here's what you expect. And we can underline it and say, you're not filling out the things right. And you can just auto fix it, and it'll just fill out the things right and just give you the props that you have to put there, or arguments. So all those things are like, there's the VFS, the virtual file system, had to come first. And that tees it up for everything else. So that's like, I think maybe as you look through all the rest of the boring edition stuff from teams that aren't mine, there's a lot of work that's put into all these foundational things to sort of tighten up all the bolts, fix a lot of incompatibilities between products, but then also set the foundation for a lot of future things to come. So I hope it makes everybody's lives just like a lot less painful today, but also makes the future a really exciting and promising one. And when I get tweets, I can act on them even faster in the future, which is totally fine by me.
So to wrap up the edition stuff, for those of you that have made it this far, we've got the new CLI updates, we've got the GraphQL updates, we've got the VS Code plugin, all very boring stuff. Now, Ben,
I gotta say the VS Code extension is like a very exciting for every dev.
Yeah, so
that's the only
thing
thing that
that
doesn't
completion
change.
and
That
everything.
to me,
Yeah.
but I agree. It fits the.
What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to put you on the spot now because you keep alluding to building a foundation for the future. So
Yeah.
anything about the future that you want to tell us, Ben?
I maybe I'll start from the thing for sure that I'd love to do is like when I was building Hydrogen, or the team and I were building Hydrogen, there's lots of people like ButcherBox who I did a fireside chat with that use Hydrogen for what I call like the right reasons. Like it's just a fundamentally bespoke business. You're assembling boxes of meat. Bacon is a type of product, and you have all these crazy routes. The team was coming from a custom solution. They are already all TypeScript people. They were showing us most of the gaps in the product. It's like this was for sure. Don't try and learn Liquid and figure out your things there. You're already experts in this area. Most of you could come just join the team. So that was perfect. And then there's some people who would go and use Hydrogen mainly because the devs wanted the dev experience of tools that they were familiar with elsewhere. I will say, from a pick of the week thing, this is not this week, but like in the devs community at least, there's awesome dev tools that are out there. I love what the Barrel team did with Shopify Vite, and I shout out Miguel all the time, but what he did with the Hydrogen theme, and he did a lot of the Shopify Vite stuff, and it's part of the dev kit thing with Archetype now. So dev kit on its own, so many cool things out there that are great for the Liquid dev experience if you know where to look, but built into the Hydrogen experience. And I call those kind of like the wrong reasons. I don't think it's the wrong reasons to switch for the dev. I think it's the wrong reasons to switch for the business. But when those businesses and devs have their what motivates them become misaligned, or like what would make their life easier become misaligned, that's when you can get into trouble. And so what I'd love to do is get Liquid to be, I think just regardless of that fact, either way coming on here, because I am a dev and care about this stuff, make Liquid the best developer experience in the world. And the thing that makes me so bullish on that not being a ridiculous statement is that it's the only place that I know that has everywhere from the runtime and the servers and the engine, as you guys talked about in the Toby podcast with our storefront renderer stuff, to the language and framework itself, to the product, to the final UI that non-technical people see in one place on teams that are talking every day. And so there is no excuse really for that not to be the best possible integration in the world. And I think we can make it like the most performant place to run any website, period. And for sure, from a developer experience standpoint, I think we owe it to ourselves to make it like incredibly fluid and the only place that can unlock flow state end to end and just feel really, really amazing. That's not going to happen overnight. There's a lot of stuff that we have to chip away to do that. Some of the things that I'm very bullish on, I'll put a stake in the ground now, are like hot reloading in the editor. I know I'm going to be chirped at for talking about this when it's not confirmed yet on the roadmap. But now that I'm building theme blocks all the time, I always am in the editor, and I always have to hit Command R to check the new thing, and it's so friggin' annoying to wait that time. And I need hot reloading for all my assets, and I need it for all these different things. So we need that would be a better experience than even the Vite stuff. That's something that we for sure need. Only possible now that we're on the new CLI. Now that we have all these new APIs, all the auto completion stuff. If that has for meta fields, meta objects, I assume that's going to be shipping by the time this is out. But that's a thing that I'm excited for too. Again, only possible because we have the admin API and this new CLI and this new VFS thing in the virtual file system for the VS Code extension. And then we also showed, because we had the virtual file system, that thing can be loaded into VS Code for web. And so now you can run, when you go in GitHub on your repo, like on an iPad or something, you can go into GitHub's VS Code for Web.dev, install the VS Code extension there, and now VS Code for Web has liquid awareness and can do all this autocomplete stuff for you, so you can code from the beach. I would love a world where I can literally code from my iPad on the beach. The fun piece of trivia is I built my first Liquid site from a boat on a 3G stick in the middle of the Nile in Egypt, and I would love to be able to do that with no 3G stick in my computer, because I have an iPad with like, it still would be 3G, but like at least 3G on my iPad, and like a little magic keyboard thing. That would be so sick. So I think that, and you know, that would just be a really cool world to live in. And then I think all of the pieces can talk a lot more together. I said at the beginning, like, the vision here really is the simplest way to get what's in your head onto the web. And I think there's times where we've made certain things easy, but then what's in your head is like a very specific thing, you know, and then it's impossibly frustrating to take it from the last mile, because you're like, yeah, that's a button. It was like easy to add the button, but like I want it to be like this kind of underline on this kind of thing. And then we did some things to we're looking at things like style settings that we announced a while ago, and we still got to figure out some stuff there before we ship it. But those things will be great to get to. But then I think there's always a time where you have to reach for code. And one of the things I'm definitely would love to do, but I can't commit to it until I can actually prove that it's possible. But I want to just be able to like Chrome inspect element on something, but just have it open up into my code editor and be able to write in that place, hit save, and then that thing come back and show it. So, you know, the entire thing, I think Unified was a really great addition, but also like a great word to talk about as a vision for the kind of quality that we should hold ourselves to moving forward. And there's endless opportunity for us to do that in a X post. I can't not call them tweets, but in tweet I just say like, hey, what's the one thing you'd change about online store? Like all of the answers are great answers, you know. There's so many things I would love to improve, but the main overarching thing is like, you don't have to know Shopify lore to become productive. It just works the way your mind thinks, and no matter who you are at any skill level, you can become insanely productive really quickly and get what's in your head onto the web, and make that the best possible experience.
Wow. You got a lot of ideas there, Ben.
So yeah, we'll see how I figure that out on a roadmap, but it should be a fun year for sure.
If you need help, I know a guy who might be looking for a job at Shopify to redeem.
I heard he got rejected, actually.
Well, second time's a charm, right?
That's, you know.
Yeah, man, I got rejected too. So 8 years, I'll see you there.
At least you applied, so I don't even like. It's like preemptive. Like I was like, in case you were thinking about it, just don't. It's like, okay,
rejected with prejudice.
All right.
That's really exciting, Ben. Thanks for giving us a little glimpse behind the curtain.
Yeah, if there's any specific things, I'm happy to. You know, I'm an open book. I'll share as much as I can without promising too much. But if there's specific things you're curious about, I'm happy to go as nerdy as you want. But
no, I love all the things I'm hearing, so I'm a fan.
All right. Well, Taylor, I don't know where to take it from here. We're kind of at time. Should we wrap it up, or did you want to try to dig into something else? Or Ben, we probably have to get to work, right?
Well, and say I don't know if you did. We talked a little bit about Liquid Doc from so you have the RFCs out for Liquid right now. We'll make sure to include those in show notes. I know, like I said, briefly mentioned Liquid Doc, but as far as like, was there anything else that you wanted to like call out
honestly,
there? Everybody wants to work with Raise better.
We haven't
like,
really talked about Liquid on the Liquid Weekly podcast. I do feel like we should at least have a final topic to just talk about the future of Liquid and see how many minutes we can condense that into. It could probably be its own episode, but I'm happy to do a little bit on that because I think we kind of owe it to the namesake of the pod first. But yeah, so if you haven't checked them out, you can go to the Shopify Liquid GitHub repo, and we've been posting these as issues. I think we'll move it to that discussions thing in GitHub, but
I think discussions would be helpful. They were kind of buried in issues.
Yeah,
so I was trying to find it even before the call when we were talking. I was like really glad that you dropped the link because I was like, where did these go? I knew I had the link for this. I couldn't find them again.
Yeah. No, well, I think I'll move them to discussion. I'll get that to happen ASAP, but one of the things I remember from a few years ago was getting this ping from Toby on Twitter. It was me and Hunky Bill that he tagged. Shout out to Dave, and because he had just done this request for suggestions for a new syntax for commenting, because he was like, hey, comments, you got to write this comment tag and comment, or inside the inline liquid you have to say comment and comment, and blah blah blah, and this sucks, and everywhere else you can just do / or whatever, and so we should just have this like little pound sign, and then you can just do it that way.
Comment, yeah.
And
Carl, that was one of your big gripes for a long time.
Yeah, I was like, yep, ship it. I don't know. Suggestions, I don't know. This sounds good to me. One of the cool things about that, though, was there was a little suggestion that came up from the community that said, hey, you should require a space after the pound sign, because you could get into weird situations in CSS where this could get mixed up as an ID, and then, like, I don't know what's going to happen, but, like, something weird could happen, right? And I'm like, okay, yeah, like, that's, like, a fair shout-out that,
Sounds
hey,
legit.
we should,
Yeah.
Good call. We should require a space. Done. So it was an intent to ship, but it was also not being too presumptuous that we nailed it, and making sure that we want to invite the community in that matters so much to us to say, battle harden this thing. We feel very confident about it. We want to ship this thing. We think it's pretty good to go, but like, as you know, Taylor, if we don't have a request for suggestions for CLI, but we shipped that thing. There was a reason we didn't remove the legacy flag and do a hard cutover. Like, there's stuff we didn't get. It's just not possible for us to test everything or ship fast. We could just hold everything back and never ship and just wait and wait and wait. But then you get things wrong too. So I think it's much better to. I love building in public. I think especially like it's an open source language. I think we owe it to the community to treat it as such and be good stewards of open source. I loved the feeling of being tagged in that thing, even though I had nothing to contribute to that request for suggestion. I thought it was just a really cool gesture. And it was a shame that was the last time that it had happened. And so there's a lot of gripes. As I said in the beginning, I fell in love with Shopify and development because of Liquid. When I wrote product dot and didn't have to think about a fetch query or anything like that, and everything just worked, that was so awesome. And even still, you go I reference it all the time, but the Timber product template is 126 lines of Liquid. It's like my mom could read through that thing and it would make sense. And there's a lot of amazing stuff we've added over the years, but it's also gotten to a place where my mom couldn't read every line of Liquid and it makes sense to her. My mom's like pretty technical. Like, she's not a coder, but like she has a cargo collective website, or no, Netlify CMS, which doesn't even exist anymore. Like, she's figured out some stuff, She figured out how to re-auth GitHub, like, because I wasn't available. So
we actually have your mom on the line, if we can bring her in.
Yeah. But like, and so anyway, but my point is, like, that is the most amazing thing. Like, there's majority of merchants edit the code at some point. That's unique to Shopify. I think the best part of Shopify, before the theme editor with a UI happened, it was just the Liquid files, as Toby said in the episode with you guys. And like, so that is what's awesome to me, is like the DX is the UX. And it's really important that you can read that thing, and it is this like expression of what you want as a user, like for product in collection.products. I'm like, got it. Every collection product in this collection is going to go through this little loop. I don't have to be a coder to know that. And then I got to know HTML, but like header, I know what that means. P, I got to learn that P equals paragraph, but whatever. Like that sort of thing, I think, like, I would love to get back to the simplicity level of Timber, but with all of the functionality that we have now. And so we're looking through where things have gone. We have Dawn as a great source of inspiration for the best we could do, right? And like, we're working on new stuff too, but that's as much as I'll say about the future for that. But looking through that as inspiration for what's weird. One of the big places is arrays. Like, arrays are just freaking terrible working with those things. So you have to create an empty string and then append the string with commas and split on the commas. So insane, just to filter out, to figure out the expensive products. So when in JavaScript, like, I think the thing for me is that Liquid makes a lot of the hard things really easy, but then there's so many easy things in other languages that are really hard in Liquid. And so where I want to evolve it is to keep the same philosophy. It's still like resilient and lasts forever. I love that there's stuff I could have written 20 years ago that still runs today, and it's actually faster today than it was 20 years ago. But we want to take all this other stuff that's built up and find ways to make it even better. So some of the RFCs that are there for arrays, there's more that we're trying to work on, trying to just make it a much more expressive, simpler language. There's lots of great inspiration to look for. I mean, Jinja is a great comparison. I think Liquid predated Jinja, but like Jinja Nunchucks Terra built on Rust is a really cool one too. Django even did some interesting stuff too. Twig, like there's a lot of great templating languages out there that I think have done some things really, really well. There's some things I even prefer about Liquid, but trying to get to that place is really cool. And then I think too, this is the other hint, and I don't really have a good idea, but this is like anybody could say this. Obviously, the future has a lot to do with AI. And so, and like I use Cursor every day. I love Copilot, these are obvious tools that are hugely impactful in our future. And I think we owe it to ourselves to make sure that we work the best with them, out of anything. And Liquid, one of the beautiful parts of Liquid is being so simple. I mean, how hard can it freaking be to train an AI model to learn all the Liquid docs? There's just not even that many tags. I remember again a time like the only Liquid docs I don't think there was a Shopify dev. I didn't go to it. I just went to Mark Dunley's cheat sheet. I'm pretty sure that was his name, right? Shout out to Mark Dunley. Yeah. And that on one page, that was all the Liquid I needed. I didn't have to like zoom in. I could just see every tag in a single screenshot. Now the cheat sheet's on Shopify.dev, and I think it's outdated. But like that was sick. Yeah. And we should have an experience that's that easy where I can go to Mark Dunley's website and I can see all of the things I need to know. And otherwise I just keep that on a monitor on my side and I just like fly away on my computer.
Yeah.
Or I don't even need it because it's just
that a little bit
VS
better.
Code.
For sure, because one of the dead giveaways right now for like when someone's like throwing around something that's just like written by AI is because like AI is so bad at Liquid right now. Like,
right.
It gives you stuff that does not exist at all, and I'm like, what is this? Where is this from? Or whatever. And so like it's anytime it's like JavaScript, regex, great. Like it's got a whole bunch of stuff it does well, but like anytime like it's Liquid, I'm like, nope, everything you're giving me is wrong. So no, stay away.
For sure, I think like. There's a cool thing in the editor on the web where it's pretty hard to screw up. Like if you don't include content for header, we don't even let you save, for example. And I think, and like there's one thing that a team was hacking on recently was like a strict mode for the CLI to allow you to not push up anything that could possibly break when you do theme push. Whereas right now there's it's like a lax parser that you can do some funky stuff. It might not necessarily execute, but it won't prevent you from doing it, and it won't necessarily break your site, but it's like not technically valid. And so I think they don't directly translate, but there's a lot here too. When you build in all of the right things into the language server, when you build in all of the right things to be able to describe and validate the language, then you can give programmatic tools as well the abilities to be able to reason about those things really well. Again, it's not, you can't just, hey, AI, understand this language server now. But you've at least done the work to describe all of it definitively, so that then you can build a grammar that it can reason about quite well. So we'll see with that. But yeah, with Liquid, again, there's things that are. I think one thing that's cool about Liquid is it's the only language that I know of that's totally unversioned. There's probably others, but that is a friggin' burden, and it's very intentional because you have to move really slow. Because, like, I love React, but also if you look at if you made code to a React code base and then you come back 2 years later, it's like, what even is this? Like, right. Yeah. There's classes and then there's hooks and no, don't use hooks, and then use signals and then like use whatever. It's like, oh my gosh, this is crazy, guys. Like. The amount of thrash that happens. Now, there's cool stuff that comes out there, but at some point it makes it into the web platform. And so, like, just really leaning on the web platform and being writing like endurable code that you could just, again, whatever you wrote 20 years ago is still relevant today. So that is a very cool constraint to put on the development of it. So you're not waking up tomorrow and Liquid being a totally different language. This is still if anything, you should be like, what I would love is for everything that we ship in the future for you to maybe it's a little bit weird to get used to the first time. Actually, no, I want to hold a higher bar. Like, as soon as you look at it, you're like, didn't this exist already? Like, I'm shocked that this wasn't already there. You know, that's how it should feel.
Yeah, like multi-line liquid blocks and stuff like that. When that first came around, like it was kind of weird. But then I was like, oh no, I use this all the time now. So like,
yeah,
you know,
and you know, I think
it's easy.
I think we could do a better job. Like, and people should call us out for it. It's part of the request for suggestions. There's definitely a lot that we do in it to make sure that it's good first, and make sure we sort of get there. But so we're pretty intent on the things that we've done. But if there's great reasons not to do something, well, for sure we can halt it. And mainly too, it's like, you know, by the time it's gone out to the community, like we've reviewed it obviously internally a lot. We've worked through it with the platform folks and the runtime stuff. As I talked about, like having that whole thing integrated is really important. And then one thing I love about Python and what brought to the world is this term BDFL. I don't know if you guys know this term, benevolent dictator for life. I love this term. It's so good. Like, and nobody's ever said this, I don't think, publicly about Toby, but like, it's obviously he's the guy for Liquid. And so, you know, and by the time it's out there in the public, it's kind of gone through that gamut. And I really want it to feel like Toby could be everywhere at once, you know, and he was like a genius in every area possible. I think I and a lot of people think he is already, but like, I'm sure he probably wouldn't say that he is. But you want it to feel like, yeah, one person crafted this entire end-to-end experience and they didn't miss a beat. You can't see the seams. You don't know, like, oh, which teams do you own? Oh, now I understand which products were built that way. You know, like that's where I think it's really hard as a big company to build stuff, and why startups feel really good is because like it's one tight team that's all in one room that's just building a thing, and so everything feels super tight and connected. And once you have all these different teams, like the cracks are where things fall apart, and so that'll be a huge thing we'll continue to work on. It's just making those things feel really seamless, and I think Liquid's a huge part of that too. So yeah,
definitely.
One a little more philosophical. I will say this is like a hot thing. I don't know exactly what role this will play, but for sure web components are like a big part of the future. I think it's like a really cool thing. This is going to launch soon enough. We cut it from Editions, but like there's a library I've been working on with this guy Brett Little and a few other folks. I won't talk about the name of it, but it'll come soon. But that's really leans on web components and is really cool. And so more of a stay tuned for that. We can maybe do another special episode in the future to talk about, or bring Brett Little on to talk about, because
you guys are gonna have to now. Just giving us this tiny little like glimpse of a teaser.
But really there's a lot of really cool stuff that we're trying to do with that just as like a fun tiny SDK. So that's been a fun thing, but that's not really a Liquid thing. But there's other places where obviously we've leaned into web components too. The community's done some really cool stuff. DevKit does really cool stuff. So obviously that's a huge thing. I'm not sure how it's going to play out, but I think we could make that a lot. We could make some better affordances for that, I think, and I think there's some better ways to allow people to leverage them really well. So yeah, maybe I'll leave it at that. But
oh man, so much to look forward to. I'll definitely have to give some updates.
I took your anything left and ran with it, Carl.
You did. Yeah. That's good. Amazing. Well, we probably should, as much as I would love to continue the conversation, probably start bringing it to an end. Taylor, you got any parting thoughts?
No, sir. I'm excited. Like I said, we'll include all of that in there. Or Ben, I guess if by the time this comes out, if you guys do move that over to discussions, we'll get updated links in there for.
We'll move it into discussions before this comes out for sure.
Okay. Cool.
See that you do, Ben. Otherwise, he's going to complain about that. You don't want more.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Now it's a call the bluff thing. Now I gotta like not do some of the things I committed to. See what happens. But
he'll help you over it.
Yeah.
Well, real quick, as we wrap, you guys want to do pick of the week? Did you have time to think about it, Ben?
I really
You were
didn't,
all like-
but you guys go first, and I'll think of something by the time.
You were all before the show like, how hard could it be? Of course I can think of a pick of the
Right,
week.
yeah,
and
that's
then-
we offered to skip for those of you that have made it this far. We offered to skip, so Ben
can't not
was all
do it.
about it. So,
All right.
Carl,
Yeah,
I know you had one locked and
Okay,
loaded.
I'll go first. All right, so this one I blame on Kurt Elster. He had some folks over last year for a little get together, and he had Fresca at his house, which I wasn't ignorant about Fresca, but I hadn't had it in forever, and I really got me back on the Fresca train. So I've been drinking a lot of Fresca and enjoying every moment of it, every sip. Thank you, Kurt and Fresca.
And Fresca. Brought to you by Fresca.
I wish.
So awesome.
Taylor?
I'll say I'll go. We'll give Ben a little bit more time. So my pick of the week is gonna be. Have you guys picked these up yet?
I didn't get one of those either.
You know what? I didn't get one of those because my son's preschool got not a Shopify one, but like a different one for Halloween. So I'm like, I don't know. Do I really need two little green rubber duckies? But,
Dude, I bought 10.
Okay, I guess I do. I got. They're $2, right? You got to get it. Yeah, you got to do it.
They were only $2. Not only that, but like, so I have two small kids, and I was like, I know I'm gonna get this, and then like my kids are gonna like sneak into my office and steal these, and so like I bought 10, I gave them 2, so I'm down to 8. So they're just and that's what I figured. Like more ducks means less bugs, right? Or fewer bugs, or at least when I talk one's ear off, I can move on to the next duck, and I'm not just essentially abusing one or the other here to try to explain all my development woes. So yeah, that's from the Shopify supply. It's these cool little duckies. So
all right, mine's gonna be a Shopify related thing as well. I'm gonna give a shout out to a lot of shout outs this episode, but to I hope I'm saying his name right because we've only ever talked on X, but Demidina who did like a v0.dev for liquid sections, which is something I've been wanting to do for so long, and I'm so sick that somebody actually like pulled the trigger and did it. I gave it a try. It's like I'm sure he's like they're still working on it, making it better and better. It's one of those things that like, hey, this should work really well for Liquid, so why doesn't it? Let's get it there. But really sick that he built it, and I'm excited to see where that goes. But I got 2 picks of the week because that I felt like that was a bit cheating, and we're supposed to do something that's not super related. So I will give it. I don't have it here. I would have if I took this call from home. But the Teenage Engineering CM15. Which is a microphone, and I'm calling them out because they're not a Shopify store, and they should be a Shopify store. So Teenage Engineering, if for some reason you're listening to this, like, I'll build your store. Just let's get you guys over. What's going on? Like, you should be over here.
Them. We'll find them in time.
I could build it like using no code for free, using it with the new like even the reference theme. Honestly, I think, but they should be over there, but the microphone's so good. It's like so expensive compared to the quality, but it's just so beautiful, and I love Teenage Engineering stuff. So that'll be my pick of the week.
That's awesome.
Wow. Well, we know what to get you for Christmas now, Ben. Teenage
I have it
Engineering.
already, so don't.
You say he has it already. You gonna give him a spare?
Well, no.
You need one for the
get them
office.
as a customer.
You need one for the office.
Yeah.
If it's at home, you need an office one.
Oh yeah, get me the new customer for Christmas. That'd be cool. Yeah. There's a domain but I can't say it now because somebody will buy it. But there's a domain name that I really want to. That's my Christmas thing.
I thought you were going Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when you said teenage.
I know when you were gearing up, I was like, "What?
Just an old school TMNT fan, not none of the new stuff. It's like just the way they illustrated pizza in my childhood is like why I love pizza today. It's like so what locked in pepperoni for every kid in the 90s, I think. But yeah.
Amazing. Well, we covered so much ground and pizza and other things on this podcast. Ben, thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate all the work you and the team at Shopify put into this. And again, I've said it before, but we really appreciate just how much you guys are willing to engage with the developer community, have these kind of conversations, pull back the curtain for us. It really means a lot, someone working on this ecosystem. So thanks.
Hey, honestly, like I could have said the same thing, but switch all the roles. Like I knew it when I was on the outside, like how cool it was. I would have said the same things about Shopify, and now on the inside, it's like the same in reverse. Having a community engage is like a exceptionally. I don't know how often it exists. Obviously, there's Apple fanboys, but they don't like build a platform like this. Like there's it's so rare to be able to build with people and build a true platform that you're really like all huge collaborators, and our success is like hinged on your success too. So, and then have people make podcasts dedicated to a language is like just so sick. Like that, I mean, maybe that's just the nerdiest thing ever, but I think everybody listening to this gets it. So thank you guys. This is just like insanely cool. And I've been a listener for a long time. This is like a very cool thing to be on. So I thought when Toby came on, I'm like, that's it. They topped it. So are you gonna end the podcast now, or like
That's
can
what
I
we
just never
said.
take it
Like,
on? I don't know.
where do you
Where do
go
we go
from
now?
here? This
Should we
is
just
we're
never
done.
publish the episode? Like,
We're done. Yeah,
But,
we talked about it. We thought about it. That's
wrap it up. It's the final episode. But no, it's super cool. Like, thank you guys for doing this. It's just a really, really, really cool thing. I know everybody at the company is super appreciative of it. I super am, and I know my team especially. And yeah, and as a listener before even working here, I love this stuff. So it's awesome. Thank you guys.
Thanks, man.
Well, we'd send you some swag. We don't have any, but thanks for joining with us.
I guess I gotta send you some swag. I'll get you that black bag somehow.
Those of you that are listening along, thanks for listening. Taylor, Ben, have an amazing rest of your week, and we'll guys see you on the next one.
No, see you.
Cheers.